Filmmakers enter Marrow House to expose the past. It doesn't haunt, it remembers. It feeds on secrets and wants a witness. Whose story will it keep? The permit was a small rectangle of paper with a bureaucratic stamp and a tremor in Maya's hand. It let them cross the drive and the threshold as easily as a key, but when she signed it, the ink felt less like authorization and more like an oath. Marrow House crouched along the river, brickwork stitched with ivy, eaves like rotten teeth, and they moved through it like people stepping into a wound. Jonas unpacked a tripod with the neatness of denial. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he thumbed the screen away when no one looked. The glow catching the line of a wedding band he refused to discuss. Leah hauled cases and, between cables, unfolded a brittle photograph of a girl she swore was her daughter, tracing the chin until her fingers ached. Omar murmured through a ledger, a list of names spread across his lap, one crossed out twice in a blue ink that made his jaw tighten. Rhea set microphones, palms learning the building's rhythm. They cataloged like archivists of grief. A child's drawing, purple crayon impressed small and furious, showed two houses, one warm with smoke, one with a gaping window that looked like teeth. A rusted cot sagged in a ward. A drawer yielded a twine-bound lock of hair, a relic of someone's attempt to keep a life. In the office, they found a reel labeled Maggie. In Maya's mouth, the name scraped like an old scar, and when they fed it into the battered player, a thin lullaby unspooled, looping with the patience of a wound. A ledger margin had a date off by exactly 25 years. Maya felt the skin beneath her collar catch cold. The pale ridge of a surgical scar showed when she tilted her head. Small things began to answer them. A voice over a microphone echoed a private confession. A monitor replayed Jonas on a garden bench holding a letter he had never received. When Leah whispered, "Mama?" the walls sighed it back in a child's voice. Marrow House listened, returned their secrets, and smiled like a thing that keeps score. The house learned them quickly, as if it had been reading their files for years. It fed each fear back to its owner in perfect private distortions. Jonas woke to a reel that glowed like a wound. Carla at the threshold with a suitcase. The man who set a ruined cup down. A scene his camera insisted had existed. His practiced eye, which had once forged truth from frames, snapped brittle as glass. Leah's scanner returned a single syllable. "Mom?" Soft as a child's mitten and impossible to dislodge. She replayed it until the device itself warmed with her obsession. Omar found invoices, scrawled notes, a crossed-out name in an ink that matched his own. Betrayal coalesced out of paper and chance. Rhea's headphones bloomed with flattering promises. Producers, spotlights, a future bought with confessions, and she began to speak into the house as if it were a radio station, bargaining. Sabotage smelled clinical. Wires severed cleanly, cameras re-angled toward incriminating frames, a love letter tucked under a lens, a photograph folded beneath a file, a vial left in a sink like evidence. Whispered accusations threaded through the house's pipes until every pause sounded like indictment. At a crooked 2 a.m, the lights pulsed, the stair hummed, and a coaxing chorus called them down. Come and remember. Jonas went first, camera as talisman. A step gave way. He fell into a tableau lifted from an old patient ledger, immobilized beneath timber, punishment rehearsed from archival cruelty. They found him pinned and perfect, as if the house had learned to stage its histories in flesh. Accusation became shelter and weapon. Leah screamed manipulation. Omar retreated, whispering that the house would rewrite him. Rhea hijacked the antique PA and spilled a jagged confession into the night. Maya, unraveling, was beset by flashbacks. Faces half-lit, a basin of water, a small hand tugging at her sleeve. And then the proofs appeared. Her own looping handwriting in ledger margins, a yellowed photograph of a small girl with the same thin scar beneath the collar. The team splintered, turning inward and at each other, and somewhere in the house a lullaby wound tighter. Marrow House listened, patient as rot, and grew hungrier. The archive lay behind a seam in plaster that had the wrong kind of silence. Maya found the door like a memory finding its mouth, an iron slab groaning as if relieved to be opened. Inside, the air tasted of old glue and antiseptic. Rows of folders stood like ribs. Film cans hummed in the low light, and a mural of cut photographs stared down with 100 small, pale faces. Paper and celluloid had been arranged into a litany. The reels were clinical and obsessive. Intake forms, appointment logs, films of children reciting lists and names, as if those syllables themselves were cures. Then, beneath glass at the room's center, a cropped portrait stopped her breath. Small jaw, lace collar, the exact pale crescent scar under the collarbone. Maggie, patient 045, was a caption. The face was hers. The archive's notation read like an experiment. Primary witness, relearning loop initiated. The cold arithmetic of it slid past professional horror into personal ruin. The house had taught a dissociated child to narrate and therefore to produce the events it needed. Maya saw, with a clarity that felt like a verdict, the permit she had signed in a fugue. She had come back because she had called herself. She moved to punish the thing that had used her. Reels were piled, chains wrapped around her waist, a gas line found and readied. She would burn the archive and with it the house's liturgy. The house answered with people it had already primed. Leah and Rhea, eyes hollowed by their own manipulated proofs. Omar snapping under the slow pressure of rewritten memory. They surged at her. Fire began, celluloid hissed, nitrate flamed beautiful and terrible. A surviving camera, the house's patient witness, watched a different end unfold. A child's face forming in plaster, eyes opening behind smoke. The lullaby loop braided with Maya's last scream. In the final frame, the lens caught. Like an invitation, new faces reflected in the glass. Permits in hand, unknowingly returning. Marrow House waits.